Back in 1985, I got to travel the fair circuit with my parents working as a commercial worker, and it was a really cool summer. Back in the late 80s, I got to do something really unique. It was just a cool experience for a teenage kid to be able to do. I got to actually travel around the fair circuit in California, working with my mother and stepfather. We weren't carnies, but we were commercial workers, and we got to go places and do things that a lot of teenagers really kind of dream about in some ways. My mother and stepfather had managed to obtain a contract to be able to travel around the fairs selling pearl oysters. So they would be in the commercial building usually. Sometimes it would be outside, but normally they were inside in the air-conditioned buildings. They would have the whole setup with the aquariums and the oysters there and the jewelry for sale. And so you could go up, pick out an oyster, they would crack it open, see what you got. And then if you wanted to put in a jewelry fitting, they'd clean it all up. And they spent the whole summer doing this, traveling around from fair to fair all throughout California. Occasionally staying at hotels, but most of the time we had a trailer that was 18 to 24 feet long. I don't remember how long. But it had beds in there, a nice large bed in the back for them, and then it had a couple other beds and one that we could pull down. So there was room for my sister, me, and my stepbrother to sleep there, depending upon who was there at the time with them. Because there would be times that my sister and I may be with my dad, or my stepbrother would be with his mother. So we weren't always with them, but we got to do a few fairs here and there. But it allowed us an opportunity to just go see and do things. It was really cool to basically hang around a fair for a whole weekend and not have to sit at home bored. We could just kind of wander around. While we were there, we got to know a lot of the other commercial workers, a lot of the other business people who also traveled the same fairs. We got to see and do things at the fairs and oftentimes get paid. We got to sample things free. I still remember this one big, huge thing that was a handwriting analysis, and you would sign your name on a piece of paper and they would feed it into the computer and it would spit out this little card that told you what your personality was supposed to be. We got to do things like that free, and they would use us as demonstrations for the people who were looking, trying to figure out if they wanted to do it or not. Mainly because they had gotten to know who we were and who we were with. And so it opened up some really fun things. We got to go to one of the old-time photos that had been at several fairs and got a really neat family portrait for absolutely nothing because we were on the fair circuit and they knew us. We actually were up on their trailer as one of the examples for a while, but we got our own copies of the picture too, which is really cool. I love my deep tan in this photo. It also gave us opportunities to work some of the different booths. I had times where I would sell sunglasses for one man, and I probably sold glasses for him at 5 different fairs. I had another one where I was selling tools. Another thing that was popular at the time was these foam lizards on wires. The wire was a big long handle, so it looked like a pet lizard, and you learned how to walk it and make it look like it was walking in a real live lizard. And I worked that booth several times. It was an opportunity for the people who owned the booths and worked them to be able to take a break so they could go to the bathroom, get some food, or just plain relax and know that there was somebody there watching it so nobody was stealing anything, and hey, still making some sales for them too. And I did pretty good at the lizards. I sold a bunch of those. One of my favorites was we were actually at a fair in Paso Robles called the Mid-State Fair. And this fair had a bunch of entertainment. It was a cool fair. I managed to get hooked up with a gentleman who created and sold wood roses. He would actually carve these roses out of wood, beautiful roses, and then sent them and sell those. He was basically by himself, and so I came over a few times to break him out. His booth was actually out not on the midway, but there were 2 big large stages, one off to one side and the other one kind of facing him across the walkway. Needed a break one time, so I came out, yeah, I'll cover for you for a couple hours. And it happened to be at this time where it was right in between shows. And so right after I got to the booth and he headed out, off on the stage on one side where I had a clear view because of where I was, Roger Miller came on. Now, if you don't know who Roger Miller is, he's the Rooster's voice in Disney's Robin Hood. Also sings a bunch of other songs. One of my favorite singers. And I was just like, I'm getting paid to watch Roger Miller, which was really cool. And he finishes up, put on a great show, a great memory. I wish we'd had cameras at the time that could have gotten pictures. He finishes up, and 30 minutes later, this group that had just won a national competition called Star Search on TV was on. Those of us showing our age, Ed McMahon. This was one of the very first groups that won with a little song called Smoking in the Rockies. So got him smoking in the Rockies.
Rocking in the Smokies. Everybody loves to hear a country boy sing.
You may know them a little better as Sawyer Brown. They actually went on to become one of the biggest names in country music for a while. And I got to watch them live at the same time. Yeah. That was really cool for a kid who liked country music. I'm like, I'm getting paid to watch these guys. Oh, that was awesome. That was a really cool day. But we would just have a blast on our off time walking around and seeing everything. And a lot of people got to know us just because 3-4 day long fair and we're there every single day. Hey, how you going? Didn't I see you yesterday? Yeah, my parents work over in the commercial building. Okay, and you just get a conversation going and learn about all these different things. It really made me appreciate some of the talent competition where you see people show off their collections and the things they had made and art. Because, we're always looking for something new to look at, and some of the stuff you would see at these things was just absolutely amazing. And so we would have a blast looking at that. The one thing that we really didn't do was we didn't hang around the carnies. There were a couple fairs where we would buy ride tickets, but for the most part, we really didn't do that. The people who work the commercial side of the fairs, which are your business people, when you go into the one building or two buildings that typically have all the little booths set up with people selling things, those are the commercial workers. They're a separate community from the carnies. Really don't socialize. They might get to know each other a little bit, but there really is almost kind of a divide between them. And the carnies would get to recognize me and my stepbrother and sister because we were at the fairs and we'd be walking around. Yeah, we'd walk through the carnivals just to check out the rides and stuff. You rarely ride just because we saw them all the time in the same rides. And we were on a budget. We didn't have that much money, which is what made it so cool getting all the free stuff. Carnies didn't give out free rides. They didn't do free anything, regardless if you were working the fairs and whatnot. That didn't happen. We'd look, but not play. And that actually rubbed a couple of the carnies the wrong way. I still remember walking through the games area at one fair, and I don't remember which fair it was, but one of the carnies working the dart booth started yelling at us, "How come I see you all the time and you don't ever play? You don't ever do anything. We're working. We're taking a break." In the course of the conversation, he got mad because we weren't spending money on his booth and threw a dart at me. It hit me right in the heel, stuck in my shoe. Thankfully, it didn't hurt me, but it was kind of like, really, dude? You're throwing a dart at me? Yeah, we did go to fair management and report that one. I took his dart to them. Hello? I'm a kid. What are you doing? That was really unusual, though. A lot of the carnies that we did talk to were generally nice people. They worked long hours, hard hours. They worked a lot harder than we did. And we put in some long hours sometimes. It wasn't unusual to do a 12, 13-hour workday because you were there before the fair opened up and then wouldn't leave until it closed. They were some long days sometimes. There was one other thing that we did, though, that was also really neat. We were at one fair. My parents had their booth set up, and then there was a booth in the middle, and then over on the other side, they had one that actually sold pickled calamari, among other things. Yeah, I got to try that. Didn't like it too much. But the booth in between was actually our booth, the kids. My parents had decided, since we were going to be there for this whole entire fair for them, that if we had constantly said, we want to work, we want to do something to make money. So they gave us the opportunity. And they had gotten together with somebody else, and we sold foil prints. They were created by lasers and just had these beautiful effects. And that's what we got to do for this fair, was we actually got to sell any profit that we made. We actually got to split. It wasn't that much profit. They didn't sell that well. But I actually do still have a couple of these things from, gosh, how long ago now? It was a really fun experience to kind of sit there and think, this is my business. I'm the one doing this. And my stepbrother and I and my sister, we actually, I think, got through that whole weekend without really fighting too much, which was an accomplishment at that time. But a neat experience for a young kid thinking, hey, I've got a business and I've got a stake in this. Just had a great summer. It was a really, really cool experience. I'm happy I got to do, kind of happy we didn't do it all the time, but for one summer, it was an awesome chance. Have you gotten to do something like that? Have you gotten to do something that most people don't get to do that was really cool that you're happy you got to? I'd love to hear about it. Share it in the comments below. Don't forget to check the description below for all sorts of information about merchandise, websites, Patreon, and so much more. Thank you to my patrons for your financial support. I couldn't do what I do without my patrons. My channel is what it is because of their support. If you want to know more about Patreon and the perks that my patrons get, be sure to check the link in the description or at the end of the video. Thank you so very much for watching, and God bless. Yeah, I guess I would have been right. So back in the 80s, so there was room for my,